Heaven's California.
Hey guys, today I'm going to be reacting to another video by Corpse Husband. I believe I've only watched one or two videos of his, I think only one. So I want to react to my next one. This one is about, I think this one's shorter than the last one. It's about 18 minutes, so kind of like the same as the Mr. Nightmare video. 3 true, scary, and intense stranger encounter stories. So stranger encounters and like stranger, stranger danger is always kind of like interesting. And I do like Corpse Husband, so I definitely do want to react to him more, which is what I'm going to be doing obviously. So yeah, I hope this will be good. It says intense, so let's just hope it's intense. I hope everyone's good. Obviously I don't know what's happening or what's going to happen yet, but I guess we'll see. But hopefully everyone's good and no one got, effed up or anything, but let's just get into it.
To preface this, I'm a girl and my mom was a horrible addict.
She barely took care of me as a kid. At the time of this incident, I was around 6 or 7, so my awareness and understanding of things happening may not totally make much sense here.
Yeah.
This happened in the 90s. One night, my mother and I were on a car ride. I wasn't sure why we were driving, but it was late at night. I'm not sure what time it was, but I assume it was really late because there weren't many cars on the street and I was sleeping in the back seat.
Okay.
I don't even remember getting in the car. My mom drove up to some sketchy house and left me in the car for what felt like forever. Suddenly, the car door swung open and someone violently grabbed me by my arm and yanked me out of the car. I started screaming and crying until the man that grabbed me looked in my eyes and said, "Be quiet and don't try to run or I'll kill you." He had a scruffy beard and looked like a madman.
Well, that escalated
I was
pretty
scared to
damn
death,
quickly.
so I listened. He held me tight by my arm, shut the car door, and walked with me down the street. I looked back at the house my mom was in, hoping that my mom would come out the last second and save me. I looked at the house as long as I could as the man dragged me further and further away. As we walked down the street, I wanted to cry, but I was in shock and in fear.
I would be too.
I didn't know what to do. If I sniffled or cried, the man would tighten his grip and yell at me. I can't even explain how scared and confused I was. We walked for a little while and ended up in the projects. The projects were a bunch of buildings crammed together in a shitty neighborhood. We walked into one of the buildings and walked up a flight of stairs.
Oh no.
My legs and feet hurt like hell, but I was too scared to stop moving or complain.
Oh no.
We walked up another flight of stairs when I saw some random guy smoking a cigarette in the stairway. Then, without warning, the guy that kidnapped me fell to the ground. It happened so fast. I didn't know how the kidnapper fell to the ground so fast, but the next thing I remember is the cigarette guy was punching and kicking the kidnapper in his head and in his face.
Awesome.
The kidnapper was out cold. Cigarette guy picked up the kidnapper by the back of his jacket and threw him down the stairs.
Oh my god.
You have no idea how scary and violent it is to see an unconscious man fall down the stairs.
Holy crap.
To this day, I still have a fear of falling downstairs. He bled everywhere. I still have no idea how cigarette guy knew to help me, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah, no, how did he know?
Maybe he could see the tears in my eyes. Maybe he just picked up on something and had a bad vibe, but he acted instantly. The first second he could, he attacked my would-be kidnapper.
Crap.
Cigarette guy starts pacing back and forth, swearing at himself, gritting his teeth, and clenching his fists. I thought he was mad at me, so I started to cry. He looked at me and said, Okay, shut up. Shut up. He had an attitude, so I listened to him out of fear. I wasn't as scared of cigarette guy as much as the bearded guy, but I was still in fear of him. He started to ask me questions with an attitude. Why are you out this late? Where are your parents? Why would you talk to strangers? I was in so much shock and confusion I couldn't answer the man's questions correctly. He asked if I knew my way home, and I told him I didn't. I told him a broken story about what happened, and somehow with the information I gave him, he knew where my mom's car was. The only thing I remember about the road is passing a house with Christmas lights on it despite Christmas already being over. I think he knew the area well enough and figured out where I needed to go based on that information. But I honestly don't even remember telling him about the Christmas lights. Anyways, he told me he would take me back if I promised over and over that I wouldn't tell the police that I saw him or anyone that looked like him, and made me promise that I wouldn't even tell the police anything. He had an attitude and I didn't care what he asked me. I just wanted to go back to my mom, so I agreed. I followed him down the stairs. The bearded guy was still laying on the ground bleeding at the bottom of the stairs that cigarette guy threw him down. He wasn't moving at all. I mean, for all I know, he was dead, and I hope now that he was. Cigarette guy stepped over the bearded guy, and I followed. We walked outside, and cigarette guy looked around panicky. I remember him telling me, "The police don't like me." We walked out of the projects, and my feet still hurt. Cigarette guy was walking fast in a panic, and I had to basically jog to keep up with him. I started crying, and he asked me what was wrong. I told him my feet hurt, and I remember him sucking his teeth and picking me up with an attitude. He awkwardly cradled me in both arms. He walked down the road for a moment. Then I remember him swearing and running behind a house or building. A cop car was driving down the road. He put me down and told me to run to the police car. I tried to run, but my legs could barely move and I was scared. The cop car kept driving and rode away without seeing me before I could even get remotely close to it. He kept swearing to himself as he picked me up again and ran down the street. He took me behind a lot of houses and hid from every cop car that drove by. I assume now that the police were looking for me. He carried me in both arms, running fast down the road when I saw my mom and her car in the distance. She was surrounded by police. Cigarette guy put me down and told me to run to the police. I got so excited the pain in my legs disappeared. He put me down and ran away. I ran towards the police and my mom. My mom picked me up and hugged me tight. The police started to ask me and my mom questions. I don't remember too much about their questions, but I remember my mom telling the police some convoluted story that just didn't make any sense. She basically told me to not say anything, and I didn't say much but cried a whole bunch. We went home. Days later, my dad picked me up and knew something was wrong. I told him everything. I never lived with my mom again. When I grew up and had time to think about that day, I never forgave my mother. Not too long ago, I asked my dad what he remembers about the situation, and he told me what he thinks happened from what I explained to him from years ago. He said my mom was on a drug binge, I got kidnapped. Someone saved me, but the person that saved me had warrants and wasn't mad at me. He was just frustrated with the situation that he had to deal with.
Yeah.
Imagine being a criminal on the run, and now you have a kidnapped girl with you, and you just beat a guy up half to death. If he would have gotten caught with me, he would be in jail for my kidnapping. With my mom lying and me being in shock and confused, I wouldn't be able to tell them that the man had helped me because while it was all happening, I didn't even notice he was helping me. To the man that saved me, thanks. To the man that tried to kidnap me, I hope I never see you again.
Holy crap. Well, that was something, alright. Damn, that was definitely intense. Like, it escalated really quickly, too.
I was on an equestrian team throughout middle school with about 9 other girls. My coach's name was Deborah, and one of the most awesome things about Deborah was that she'd always take our teams on reward trips or events. Trips included outings such as movies, water park dates, or just barn sleepovers. This particular trip was a trail ride overnight. We were ecstatic as trail overnights were only a summer thing, and it was one of the first ones of the year. Basically, a trail overnight was a weekend that we would go on a 3-day-long trail ride. We'd pack a bag or 2, meet up on Friday morning at the stable, load up our horses and bags into the 3 trailers, and be on our way. That was exactly how it happened this particular trip. Everything went exactly as it should have, and we set off to a trail near the Sleeping Bear Dunes as I live in rural Michigan.
Okay.
Things got odd a few hours into the trip. We had all left at about 7 in the morning, so that left us with plenty of daylight to do fun stuff after we got settled into the campsite. Deb had us all saddle up to go along the Lakeshore Trail. Once everyone was in the saddle, we set off on a narrow, single-file-only trail that wound through some woods and eventually would lead us to an overlook of the beach. I was completely in my zone. My horse, Aries, was not. It was like he and a few other horses were sensing something that nobody else did. But we chalked it up to being in a new place that we had never camped before. Being that Aries was a Mustang, I thought maybe his wild instincts were kicking in after a few years of being domesticated as well. At about 7 o'clock that evening, while Deb and the stable hand Carla cooked up hot dogs and the rest of us had to come back from swimming, I decided to take Aries out for a quick trot and a loop around the campsite in hopes to calm him down.
Okay.
I grabbed my helmet and mounted up, not bothering to grab reins or saddle up, and just tied the lead rope to the other side of his halter. The ride went how I expected it to, with Aries acting up. Although this time his behavior was different. He didn't just seem agitated, he seemed distressed, like something was really scaring him.
Uh-oh.
I looked around and couldn't see a thing. No deer, no bears, no other horseback riders or mountain bikers or anything.
What
I
is it?
decided to go down a little trail that would wind back up at the campsite after about 5 minutes rather than just going in a loop. This is where it hit the fan. We had been going for about 2 minutes on this little trail when I started feeling funny, like we were being watched. I turned around and nobody was there. At one point of the trail, we came across a big boulder, and this was where Aries stopped completely. No amount of nudging or encouragement budged him. He absolutely refused to go any further. I slid off his back and tried pulling him to no avail. That's when I noticed where his eyes were focused. He wasn't looking at me, but over my shoulder. Ears perked forward, absolutely silent, like a dog pointing. Slowly, I turned around and saw a tall, dark figure about 50 yards away, maybe
shit.
less, standing ahead of us on the trail, not moving, even though I'm sure he heard us. I didn't know what to do. Was he a hiker? It was obviously a man, but he had no pack, no bike, nothing.
Yeah, he's
He
a
was
pervert.
holding something in his hand, though. A walking stick, maybe. I didn't want to bother him or go near him, as his presence had given me the creeps.
Yeah, don't go
I
there.
whispered to Aries that we were going back, and slowly climbed on. As soon as I was situated and I looked back at the man, though, my heart dropped. The figure had turned towards us, watching.
Oh no.
I could tell because I could faintly make out the zipper of his jacket. There was no doubt he had seen and heard us, so there was no point in trying to be subtle. I offered a wave, trying to signal I was out of there and wouldn't be a bother. Aries was more than happy to oblige. When I looked back again, my heart dropped even further and I froze. The figure was getting larger. The man was chasing us, running at full speed. I saw what was in his hand, a machete.
Oh my
It
god.
couldn't be, but it sure looked like some kind of weapon.
Holy crap, go.
I said Aries' name loudly in fear, and he knew what I wanted. He kicked into overdrive as the man had caught up to about 10 yards away from us. Mustangs are fast, and Aries was no exception. That made hanging on without a saddle a bit difficult, but I somehow knew that if I fell, my life was over. And just my luck, I did fall. Aries had put some distance between us and the man to where I could no longer hear or see him. But it didn't take long for the machete guy to come within hearing range. It was still daylight out. If it had been dark, I would have stayed low to the ground where I fell, but wearing a bright red shirt made me stand out like a sore thumb and gave me no hope of hiding for long.
Holy crap.
The man came up over the hill of the trail and spotted me immediately. I knew I was doomed. The man started towards me, and before I could bolt, I heard the thundering sound of hooves speeding in my direction. The man, although I couldn't see his face beneath the hood of his jacket, I could tell he was looking behind me. I turned to and had to dive out of the way. Aries was speeding towards the man in like a freight train.
Oh
I
shit.
couldn't believe what I saw. Before the guy could dive out of the way, Aries struck him with full force and trampled him, making the guy yell out in pain. He lay there limply. More than likely a bone or two was broken. Aries was big for a Mustang, and being hit and run over by any horse isn't going to leave you without injury. Aries disappeared over the hill for a second, then came back and ran the man over a second time.
Oh shit.
He stopped long enough for me to scramble onto his back, and we sped to the campsite.
Holy
I
crap.
told Deb and the rest of the group that we needed to call the police and get the hell out of there. As soon as I told Deb, she had us pack our stuff up and get in the trailer and trucks while she called the police.
Good.
They didn't take too long to arrive, as there were usually some scouting around the area we were in. I told them everything that had happened, and that the man may still be laying where we had left him because Aries had trampled him pretty badly. We didn't stick around long enough to find out, but we learned that the guy I had encountered had previously been arrested for assault with intent to kill. How he had gotten into the woods, I'll never have any clue. I do know that I owe my life to my horse, as I wouldn't be here to tell this story had I not been with him. People say horses are dumb animals, but I think Mustangs are different. I think if Aries had not been wild before, he wouldn't have been able to recognize the threat. Anyway, that's my story. If there are any fellow riders out there, or even just hikers or mountain bikers, whatever you might do on the trail, I recommend you don't go do it alone.
Shit, eh? See, horses can be good too. A lot of animals can be like really helpful in saving your life.
At the time this happened to me, I was a 26-year-old male. I'm telling my story in hopes that it may educate people and to demonstrate to those who have experienced what I have that they're not alone.
4
The
minutes.
year was 2010, and I had just finished basic training in the military.
Okay.
I joined the Marines in hoping to improve myself and become part of something greater than myself. After completing basic training, I was stationed at a facility where I was to receive MOS training, which is basically training for the job I was to do in the Marines. I was married at the time, and things were not going well between my wife and I. After a stressful week, I decided to go with some of the guys in my unit to a local bar and blow off some steam. Before we were dismissed for the weekend, we were briefed by our command on basic safety tips such as travel in groups, don't wander off drunk alone, and watch your drinks. I blew most of what they said off because I never envisioned anything bad happening to me. After finally being released for the weekend, we hit the bar and it was packed. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and we were all having a great time. While my friends were dancing and socializing, I decided to head back to the bar for another drink. While waiting for the bartender, a gentleman I did not know approached me. He was slightly taller than me, slender, and rather non-threatening.
Okay.
He smiled and said, "Hey, Marine, you look stressed." Without thinking or even caring, I told him about my marital troubles. He offered me a drink, and as I had my attention turned to my phone, he handed me a drink. He smiled and said, "See you around." I drank what he gave me, and I went to go look for my friends.
No, don't
As I
drink
began to walk around, I started to feel sick.
Yup.
The room began to spin, and I was not feeling well.
There it is.
I felt that something was off, and when I couldn't locate my group, I left the bar to call a cab and head back to base. As I staggered outside, struggling to pull my phone out, the man who bought me the drink approached me. "Where's your friends?" he asked. "I don't know, but I'm going home," I replied. "Why don't I take you home?" he said.
No.
I didn't know this guy and was starting to feel uneasy,
Yeah.
so I politely refused, telling him that I'd wait for a cab. That was when the expression on his face changed to a menacing look. "Let's go, I'm taking you home," he
No,
stated
not.
with an angry tone as he grabbed my arm. I demanded he let me go and began to struggle when he slammed my head into the wall.
Oh shit.
Almost immediately after that, I began to lose consciousness. As he dragged me to his car, for what felt like an eternity, I went in and out of consciousness as I felt weight pressing down on me. I tried to struggle, but I passed out again.
Shit.
When I finally woke up, I was face down in an alleyway with my pants down covered in blood.
Oh
I was
shit.
bleeding from my face and from behind. I was in so much pain. I finally made it back to base, and when asked about what happened, I lied. I was so ashamed. I couldn't believe what had happened. For the next 3 years, I fell into a deep depression. I suffered from depression, anxiety, and spells of rage. My marriage ended not long after what happened. Despite this horrible incident, I finished my enlistment honorably, and it took years before I was able to come to terms with what happened. My advice to anyone who has experienced what I have: you are not alone. Be patient with yourself and get help. The sooner you deal with it, the better it will get. To everyone else, watch your drinks. Be aware of your surroundings and never accept drinks from strangers. You never know when you will cross paths with a predator.
Wow. Oh my god, I almost fell. Sorry guys, after 4 long videos, I'm just kind of a bit out of it right now, but that was a pretty good video as well. The first one was definitely scary. I'm glad that it's weird though, because it's like that guy, the cigarette guy, just knew that she was in danger, and then, you know, damn, yeah, like if the cops caught him like that, then that would not have been good for him. Again, the horses can be smart. Again, I've never owned a horse. I barely even see horses like ever, but I have cats, as you guys know. But yeah, like yeah, pets can save your life. Dogs, probably not cats, but cats are pretty lit too. But like, you know, dogs, horses, you know, any kind of animal could potentially save your life too, so. And the fact that if he or she didn't have his or her horse, then he or she may not have made it out alive, so they definitely got lucky. They definitely got lucky as well. And as for the last story, yeah, do not, like, if you want to go to the bar, okay, but like watch out, because like you never know who's going to be there, you never know who you're going to encounter, you never know if someone offers you a drink, you never know if they're polite, if they're just trying to make friends. You don't know if they're a pervert. You don't know if they're trying to rape you. You don't know if they're trying to kill you. You don't know if they're trying to assault you. Like, you just don't know what they're gonna do. You know. So like but you always gotta watch out for strangers, like stranger danger. Hello. So just be aware of your surroundings and just be careful. Stay safe. And that's all I can really say, because like you literally never know. Like, you never even know anybody until, you know, like you would just never know anybody. Like, you could just think someone's your friend and then boom. I don't know, but just be careful. That's all I can really say, because like you can't really predict, you know, stuff's gonna happen or whatever. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching and peace out.